Welcome everyone to the August Commission on Sustainability meeting. We have a jam-packed agenda for today. I'm Mia Blom, and Jared is actually here. He's on the phone line. Um,
Everybody.
there we go. And so I think what we'll do is, just so we can maybe do roll call in just a few minutes, maybe we can get started with the office updates first. We can't hear you, Ava.
Hear me now? Okay, great. I apologize for that. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending the August 2024 Commission on Sustainability meeting. We'll jump into some updates from the office really quickly, and I will share my screen to provide those updates. Give me one moment. All right, so welcome everyone to the meeting. Tonight, we're really excited to continue in our series of focusing on energy and the economy issues. And so this is just an overview of the agenda in terms of some of the presentations that we'll hear tonight. We'll hear from a few different energy and buildings and energy experts and organizations providing really helpful resources to various energy stakeholders in the region. And as a reminder, next month, we'll be having an in-person energy networking event that'll serve as our meeting for September. It'll be at the Montgomery Park Business Center, the state facility, and we'll talk more about that event. We did want to just share with folks. I think we did mention our new climate and resilience program manager, Natalie Cohen, last month, but we have a new team member that started this month, our Conservation Corps member, Gail Mallon. And I think, Gail, if you're on, I want to introduce yourself. You can feel free to unmute and say a little bit about yourself. Okay. Hopefully we'll be able to introduce Gail to folks in the near future. But to get into some other updates, we have released the 2023 annual sustainability report. In the report, we highlight several updates as it relates to the different, some of the 244 actions in the plan. And Amy just dropped a link to the actual plan itself in the chat, and I will switch over. Trying to pull up one of the draft plan to share a screenshot of that with folks. I apologize to pull that up. Again, apologies for that delay, but we just wanted to give folks a quick snapshot of the plan itself. And so in the executive summary, we kind of highlight some high level accomplishments, including the city obtaining the LEED Gold certification, as well as the $7.3 million FEMA grant that was awarded to install solar at many different community resiliency hub sites across the city. Also, progress made with the Reimagine Mill Branch initiative, restoring wetlands and supporting shoreline restoration in South Baltimore, as well as continued progress with Made in Baltimore. And we've continued our robust engagement in 2023, obtaining or achieving over 70,000 engagements during the year. Just to give folks a snapshot and an update of kind of where progress stands with the implementation of the sustainability plan. Roughly 57 of the actions have been advanced either to a state of mid or beyond. I'll go back to the presentation. Sorry for that delay earlier. Other updates, the Reimagine Middle Branch initiative, again, the wetland restoration project has begun. We're really excited about this and looking forward to continued progress to share with you all about the Reimagine Middle Branch program. The process for restoring 10 acres of wetlands is underway. So we're hoping that there'll be more updates about the process and all the benefits that the project will bring to South Baltimore in the future. Just so, as a reminder, we do have our schedule of meetings and topics kind of outlined for the rest of the year. And so we'll be sharing more detail about what to expect for the meetings from October to December. But as we mentioned, in September, we'll be having that energy networking event. And you can check out the latest version of our newsletter that will be released, I believe, later this week, and will we typically archive those on our website as well to be shared out. We are beginning a new round of the Green Healthy Smart Challenge, where schools can apply for up to $1,800 in funding support for different sustainability projects and initiatives. So those applications have opened up. They opened up on August 19th and they will close on October 21st. If you are seeking any additional information about that program, we're happy to connect you either with Ebony Smith on our team or in our office, or Joanna Pisonier with the Baltimore City School Systems. All right, so with that, we'll jump right back into the agenda. And Mia, did you want to get into roll call now, or did you want to do updates? Okay.
Nope, that sounds great. So I'm just going to start first with me. So Mia Blom, I am present. Jared Lyles,
I'm present.
Regina Boyce, Donzel Brown,
Present.
Phil Costa,
Here.
Gary Crum, Lisa Ferretto,
Oh, present.
Morgan Grove,
Here.
Bill Joyner,
Present.
Earl Johnson, Nicolette Lewis Saint,
Present.
Felicia Porter, Inez Robb,
Here, present.
Bryant Smith. Stephanie Smith.
Stephanie contacted us to let us know that she's not able to attend.
Thank you. Well, that's it. I think we are, and Ben Zajac. Sorry, Ben. Thought that I saw Ben here. Yes, he actually is here. Okay, I think that's it for a roll call. Thank you. There are just a couple of updates that you saw on the agenda. Can you go into full screen mode, maybe, Ava? Just so that everyone can see that next month for the September meeting, Jared can go into greater detail about this, but we're going to be meeting in person at the Montgomery Park Business Center. There we'll have a continuation of our conversation about energy. We also will call a special meeting to discuss the Meadows bill with the bill sponsor. The potential dates for that could be potentially September 19th, 4 or 5 p.m. Thanks, Ben. September 23rd, noon or 5 p.m. September 25th, noon, 4 or 5 p.m. or September 26th at noon. These will all be virtual meetings to allow commissioners the greatest opportunity to engage and just to have our questions answered that we had asked of the bill sponsor and see if we can have additional dialogue around the intent of the bill and how we might be able to collaborate. So that is it as far as that's concerned. Are there any questions from commissioners? Okay.
Mia, I
So
wanted to clarify for the commission members. At the start of the meeting, I'd sent an email to all the commission members and it has a link to a doodle poll with those date and time options. If you can respond by noon on Friday, that'll allow me to then confirm and get the date out to everybody so everybody knows what we select.
thanks for that clarification, Amy. I think that's really helpful. So just, yeah, there are lots of dates, Lisa. So lots of options around the commission meeting time and at noon, so that maybe someone might be at lunch, take that meeting. Amy, if we're looking at the draft policy, are you in a space where you can share that? You are currently muted.
Do you want me to share the link in the chat or share the document on my screen?
Share the document on the screen.
Yeah, 1 minute. I just want to adjust the size before I start sharing it so that it's readable for folks.
Thank you. An earlier meeting, we talked about coming up with a draft policy on adopting plans that were not created by the Office of Sustainability or the Department of Planning. We've created a draft document for the Commission's review, and we'd like for you all to have an opportunity to go in and make any necessary changes based on the draft. This was based on the existing policy that the Department of Planning has. We would like to have any feedback by September 13th from commissioners, and then we can have an opportunity to open it up for public comment. But we wanted to give you an opportunity just to kind of preview it and see what it looks like, know that it's based on an existing policy, and be able to have any questions on this where we can handle those questions at the in-person September meeting. But if you have any comments or questions about what is here, you all can put your comments in. We'll be tracking changes just so that we can have a document that will allow organizations and communities to come and have the expertise of the commission and the office take a look and approve a plan or just add our stamp of approval. Are there any questions about that? Fantastic. So I'm actually going to hand it over to Donzel for a quick briefing on air quality monitoring. And we'll be back after that. Thanks.
Thank you. I thank you for the commission for this opportunity. Joining us is one of my staff members, Christian. And Christian, if you can put in the chat the website, or I can do it, for what we're doing. So we're going to be launching a program called Breathe Baltimore. And we're working with the Smithsonian and their scientists in a greater sense as the scientific or Smithsonian Environmental Research Center here in Maryland. And we're going to be putting air monitoring devices around the city. So we've identified a number of sites, but we'd like to ask that other sites would be available to your neighborhoods, your communities. These air monitoring sites, they have LED lights on that will tell you based on color coding of the LED lights on the quality of your air in real time. And also, you'll be able to track the data online through our website and through the Smithsonian website as well about air quality in your community. We've identified a number of sites, but we have a number of sites that we still can provide air monitoring quality systems in your community. And our goal is to have them in areas where people are frequenting, so they can physically look at the air monitor and understand their air quality in their neighborhoods. Um, so if you look at the website and you take a look um, on what things we are tracking or things we're trying to measure, this is the baseline of what we're going to do. If there's air quality measures around the city that we need to focus on that are in particular communities, we're happy to do that. Um, for example, our first installation was in South Baltimore, on the Baltimore Peninsula. Our next installation will be in West Baltimore, right at the um, crux of where the tunnel is supposed to be starting construction, the Amtrak tunnel. That community is interested in the environmental impacts, the air quality impacts of the construction that will be going on during the construction of that tunnel. So that will be another installation that we'll be doing as soon as possible. And I'm gonna kind of pass it on to Christian if we talk about what air quality means and what we're looking at.
Yeah, hi, my name's Christian. I'm here with Donzel, obviously. We really are just looking to educate everyone on how the air is affecting our daily lives every single day because so many people they grow up and they come to have some type of sickness or disease or something like that, and 9 times out of 10, it ends up being traced back to the waters they were drinking in their hometown, the air they were breathing when they grew up, things like this. And so, if I mean, you can follow along on the website, but it just goes on to provide you with the different types of pollution and how they affect you, where these different types of pollutions come from. And then we go on to provide, like, I guess, small, like, short-term solutions to how you yourself can slowly but surely stop um your specific, like, personal exposure to these, like, pollutions and stuff like that. And the, I guess, last little part would just be about, like, the air quality index. This is what Donzel was talking about in terms of, like, what the machines that we'll be setting up as a part of the program will monitor. And it'll just help to identify the specific areas around Baltimore that are way more hazardous than others and help us to get a better understanding of what we need to do moving forward to lower these hazards. Um, like I said, if you want any extra information, obviously you can reach out to me or Donzel or us, and then the link in the chat will also lead you to some extra information. What is exactly being measured? Temperature included.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you, Christian. Like
yeah,
those,
no, yeah, I'll let Donzel answer that.
yeah, those identifiers will be on the monitor themselves, available for people walking by in their neighborhoods. They can see in real time what their air quality is, but also they'll be able to reach out to our website. Also, the Smithsonian website and collect longer term data about air quality in your community and what the pollutants are, and give communities a better tool to um, fight environmental justice in their communities based on the quality of the air and what the pollutants are. So if you're around, we obviously have talked about the incinerator a lot, but there's a lot of construction going on and a lot of development going on in Baltimore, and those provide a lot of pollutants, and we want to monitor those pollutants and how they affect the people of those communities. Because as Christian mentioned, um, sometimes in I'll use an example of redeveloping an area and tearing down housing. Are they doing it responsibly so the asbestos doesn't get into the air? Or if they're building a tunnel like Amtrak is doing, are they doing it responsible so the pollutants of the construction doesn't get in the air? Is Flanagan's in West Baltimore being responsible about their pollutants that they're putting in the air at their mining site, um, so forth and so on. So we will have probably around 15 to 20 monitors around the city available around the city. We're working to identify sites. We have a number of sites identified, but we would like the help of the commission and everyone here on this call to help identify additional sites, or if there's other places that you feel that are prime for air quality testing. If there's certain pollutants that are concerning to people's neighborhoods, let us know, and we'll try to put those there. Um, One thing that really the only thing that we ask to be part of the program is that uh, we would have at each site that steward would only be responsible for making sure it's still working, the lights are still working, there's no damage done to them, there's no vandalism to the to the sensors themselves, and then possibly, depending on the site, um, switching out the SD cards, which are the data cards, and providing them to us in the Smithsonian for data analysis. And that's a very easy process. And then the final part is we would like to have people in the community engaged in storytelling around their air quality and what they're witnessing um, in, uh, in seeing the monitors, but also what they've witnessed personally as far as air quality is concerned. Uh, this is the first stage of what we're going to, potentially do, and we like to ask the support of the city moving forward, because the second stage is indoor air quality testing, and that would be a much larger community engagement ask for people to have air monitors inside their houses, their homes, their offices, their where they live inside. But I think that this is a great thing that has never happened in the city before. If we can move to that second stage, um, and I would like to open up to questions. The Smithsonian was supposed to join us around 5. We got a little early in the agenda for this, but they can explain a little bit more if they come on around then.
No questions. I see you have a question from Aaron Reed Miller here. What exactly is being measured, temperature included, and how will the unit be protected from theft, vandalism, etc.? You want to talk to that
So,
briefly?
yes, for sure. So, the systems will be, well, one, also, if you agree to have a system on your property or at your community center or whatever it might be, they're fully insured and um, there's no response to the host site to protect it from vandalism or the such. The systems are created to prevent vandalism. I mean, there's security measures involved with the system, but you can never predict what someone might want to do or someone might want to do. And as far as vandalism, but they are protected. The reading system on the system is forward facing, and then we'll have QR codes or does have QR codes to get additional information about what they're testing. And if you go to the website I put in the chat, you can see exactly what we're testing and uh, for what, and then we are able to, depending on the neighborhood, and then calibrate them to um, test for particular things. Um, and that's available with the system. So if there's a particular system in a particular neighborhood, they're looking to test for certain particulates. Um, we can calibrate it for that if they're looking for, a specific particulate in that community that they fear that there are pollutants around them are putting that in. But in general, if you go to the website in general, what we'll be testing for is on the web page. But yeah, we could do everything from temperature to very specific particulates working with you know with the Smithsonian and their scientists and what they're doing. Um, so right now on our website is what we're basically the baseline of what we're testing, but we can do or this we can do more if there's something specific.
There's a question here, I guess, and we're running short on time, but from Ben Zychek, and he just asked if you guys are connected with the Search Air Quality Network. And I also acknowledge Inez Robb has her hand raised as well.
We are not connected with the Search Air Quality Network as of now.
Cool. Thanks, Donzel. I'd love to follow up with you. This stuff's awesome. So Search is an EPA funded network that's been doing PM, NOx, and other things at about 50 sites around Baltimore for the past 6 or 7 years. But it doesn't have the cool kind of, like alert system and front facing thing that you got. So I think it might be nice just to cross check. And then there's a few other things, and I'll follow up on that offline. I know we're short on time here, but I don't know if anyone from Green and Healthy Homes Initiative is on the call right now. When we talk about indoor air quality, that's something that they've been very interested in. They've been reaching out to some of us in the research community about, and it sounds like they're giving you some really good synergy with your kind of phase two. So really look forward to connecting with you on how we can work together.
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. I'd be happy to do that. And yeah, as far as phase two of the indoor, it's a little bit more complicated, as you probably know, in getting people's permission to put things in their homes or their offices or whatever it might be. But yeah, we are definitely working towards that. I look forward to talking to you. Miss Inez?
Yeah, I live in the community where the Amtrak is doing some um under our houses, where they're doing some reconstruction and tearing down and all that good stuff, as well as I live close to Flanagan's. My question is, where is it that you plan to the exact location where you plan to put this air quality light?
So right now we're working with Ray at the I don't know if you know Ray. he represents the historic Midtown Emerson neighborhood.
Are you talking about Ray Kelly? Does he have a last name?
Yeah,
You talking about Ray Kelly?
not Ray Kelly. No,
Ray Baylor.
Ray Baylor.
Yeah, Maya was very, very gracious in introducing us. Yeah, we're
So you don't
working
know
with him.
you don't know the exact location where it's going to be
Well,
placed?
we have two locations potentially. One is the community center where he operates out of. Another
Which
one
is what street? That's what I'm trying to get a feel so I know what.
I believe I will look it up now. I believe it's Fulton Street or
Okay,
Monroe.
I live at Fulton. I live on Fulton Avenue. So you got to
Okay.
tell me more. Tell me more than that.
Okay, I'll let you know the exact location if I can
Okay,
reach out to you.
the two
Yeah.
locations, because it would be great if I could share that with the residents and the community, but I need to know where.
I will
Okay,
let you know for sure. And part of what we're going to be doing when we install these facilities is like talking with Ray and talking with you. I'll talk with you after this. Is being available to community meetings, being available to community groups, so that we can explain what they are and explain the education that they can get and information that they can get around the systems themselves.
right.
So
Because
it's not just a green light that says it looks good or a red light that says it means bad. But why does it mean bad? And we will be doing a tour of community organizations and community groups to explain more
okay.
about the system.
Please
We'll
let
do
me
it.
know so I can share the information that, and hopefully I can be a part of when it's done, because we've got a
Yeah,
coalition of people that the impact that this Amtrak may have on different locations within the
yeah,
circumference of where the Amtrak is going to do their. They're doing some demolition right now as we speak,
yeah.
but they're going to be doing much more. And I'm gonna shut up so I can so we can continue with the meeting.
This is
No,
great.
I will reach out to you for sure and construction development. For sure. So I'll reach out to you. You'll hear from me. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
This is great. I really appreciate the briefing, Donzel, too. And sounds like a lot of people had questions. We might even want to follow up on this when the project, when you guys have a couple of installations installed, and just to check back in on it and see how different things are being impacted with constructions and your indoor air quality. So thank you very much for this. And I want to invite anyone, if they have any projects that they're working on, things that they're researching, to get involved with one of our brief or something that you're even an expert on that you want to share some of your information about. Just invite you all to be a part of our briefings. We're going to be skipping the briefing for the September meeting because of our in-person format, but we should more than likely be picking back up again in October. So if you have any interest in presenting about a topic, and feel free to reach out to me or me or Amy or the rest of the commission. Yep. All right. Thanks again, Donzel. And Kristen. Next, I want to move on to our special guest speakers and going back to the theme with energy and the environment. Energy and the economy. We're going to have a few speakers for both this program this week as well as next week to further educate not only ourselves, but stakeholders throughout the city about some different legislative changes as well as funding resources available to help businesses and individuals become more energy efficient and sustainable and lower their carbon footprint. So first, we're going to start off with Sam Furio. He works for the Climate Change Program as an outreach coordinator for the Maryland Department of the Environment. Sam's going to discuss some of the legislation that is coming down the pike, first on energy efficiency and greenhouse gases, as well as some other initiatives that the Department of Environment has. So related to energy. So yeah, looking forward to speaking with you, Sam.
Thank you, Jared. Appreciate it. Can you guys hear me okay? Great. All right. And excuse me, I won't be able to turn my camera on. I'm having to sit in my car. I just got kicked out of a building that's closing. So I'm doing this mobily. And Becky Price from the Maryland Energy Administration, if she's on, she's going to be sharing some slides for me, I think. So just
Okay, I'll give her the, okay. Looks like she
oh,
already has
there it goes.
to present. Okay.
Thanks, Becky. And while we're doing that, just want to thank the commission for having us here today. We appreciate the opportunity to speak. And like Jared said, I'm the outreach coordinator for Maryland Department of the Environment's Building Decarbonization team. Our team is tasked with developing and implementing the state's proposed building decarbonization policies. Most prominently right now is the building energy performance standards, which I'm going to talk to you today about. There we go. Great shot of Baltimore. Love that view. So thanks again to the commission. I think, Becky, we can go to the next slide.
Is it in full screen mode, Sam?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
There, beautiful, thanks. So just a little bit of background on the proposed BEPS, Building Energy Performance Standards, and other building decarbonization policies. They're all part of the state's climate pollution reduction plan, which is a plan that the state released last year in 2023 that outlines how the state is going to meet its greenhouse gas reduction goals that it set forth in the Climate Solutions Now Act of 2022. And so those goals were 60% GHG reduction by 2031 and net zero by 2045 compared to 2006 levels. So the plan outlines how we're going to hit those goals, and also how we're going to create net economic benefits for Maryland, including more than 27,000 green jobs. You can read the plan today at MDE's website. Next slide, please. So if you haven't heard, and today we're talking about BEPS, it's the hot topic. So if you haven't heard about BEPS, Building Energy Performance Standards, the department and our team are running a series of outreach sessions in August and early September that are being held virtually and recorded and posted to the department's YouTube page. So you can go and view them now if you're interested. And these sessions cover everything from high-level overview of BEPS to nitty-gritty details of what is BEPS and what is an owner of a large building that's required to comply with the policy. What do they need to do? So we're hoping that all of these outreach sessions will give you a good scope of the policy. And we actually have one session tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Called Clean Buildings for All, Leaving No One Behind, talking about how the state is implementing these decarbonization policies to improve indoor air quality for Maryland residents and also reduce energy costs and make sure that it's an equitable transition across the state. So that's tomorrow evening. Please tune in. Next slide, please, Becky. And Becky, the one controlling the slide for me right now, is actually represented on the screen as this Bitmoji. That is Miss Price, and Miss Price is within the Maryland Energy Administration. I won't spoil too much because she's going to speak to you guys here shortly. But she is in charge of the Clean Buildings Hub within the Maryland Energy Administration that is tasked with creating a one-stop shop for decarbonization resources that it can be used to point, members of the public to decarbonization resources for all types of buildings. So tune in tomorrow evening to learn more about the hub. And you'll also hear from Becky here soon. Next slide, please. So just pretty high level overview of BEPS, Building Energy Performance Standards. It was required by law in 2022. The proposed regulation aims to reduce energy costs and increase indoor air quality for Maryland residents, while also reducing on-site direct greenhouse gas emissions from large buildings in the state to meet the state's greenhouse gas reduction goals. So these covered buildings, when I say covered, I mean buildings that are required to comply with the policy, are buildings that are 35,000 square feet or larger, excluding any parking garage area. So they're pretty large buildings. Think of your average grocery store. Owners of these covered buildings, these large buildings, should start benchmarking now. That means submitting energy data to the department. And they're required to submit their first report to the department by next year, June 1st, 2025. And they're going to submit to us their 2024 energy use data that they'll get from their utility provider. So then those buildings over 35,000 square feet, they're going to start submitting data to us, and then they're going to need to achieve interim standards, performance standards in 2030. And those interim standards are going to tighten throughout the 2030s. And finally, in 2040, we're going to reach the final standard of zero net direct emissions from covered buildings. All covered buildings under the regulation need to hit zero on-site net direct emissions. So building owners will have to regard these standards, and if they're not able to achieve the standards, they can make an alternative compliance payment in lieu of fully achieving the emission standards. Next slide, please, Becky. So just quick distribution of covered buildings throughout the state. What do they look like? The state did a preliminary analysis on the covered building stock in Maryland for BEPS buildings, so buildings over 35,000 square feet. You can see a distribution on the screen of that preliminary analysis. They're primarily warehouses, office spaces, multifamily housing, and retail stores. Next slide, please. And so distribution of these buildings across the state, they're all across the state. They're in every county, but primarily they are between Baltimore and DC along I-95. This is where the hot spots are for covered buildings. Next slide. So what does a building owner need to do? Previous slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, I got screwed or turned around in my head. So these buildings over 35,000 square feet, there are certain buildings over 35,000 square feet that are exempted from the regulation. So that would be historic buildings designated as historic property under law, public or non-public elementary and secondary school buildings, manufacturing buildings, agricultural buildings, and federally owned buildings. Okay, next slide, Becky, sorry. So what does an owner of a building need to do? Well, they need to determine if their building is covered under the policy by calculating its square footage and evaluating if it falls into one of those exemption buckets that I just stated. So then if they determine that they're covered and they're not exempt, they need to start benchmarking. And so getting energy data from their utilities and getting ready to submit it to the department via its benchmarking tool, Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and they will need to submit that first report by next June. And so then based on that benchmarking, they're going to see how their building's performing, and then they're going to be able to assess where they need to go to meet those standards that I mentioned that start in 2030. And then they can determine if they're not meeting the standards, how they should plan to make improvements and determine when it's preferable to pay that alternative compliance payment. Next slide, please. So just diving into each one of those sections again. So here we are, 2024. Next year, annually starting June 1st, 2025, and every year thereafter, covered building owners, so building or owners of buildings over 35,000 square feet, will need to report annual energy use and greenhouse gas emission data via Energy Star Portfolio Manager to the department. And like I said, that's going to happen every year starting next year. And all they have to do for the next 5 years is benchmark. They don't have to meet any standards. All they have to do is submit data to us. Once they get this data, they can start assessing where they need to go to hit the targets. The targets are already set forth in the proposed regulation, so they can see how their property is performing now by benchmarking, and then they can see the targets that we've laid out for them. They can assess where they need to go to achieve those targets. Next slide, or next thing. So once 2030 starts, they're going to have to start achieving the standards, the interim emission standards. So annually starting in 2030, they can either achieve those standards or opt to make a partial alternative compliance payment, or achieve partial compliance and make an alternative compliance payment for any emissions over their standard for their property type. So they can opt into that alternative compliance pathway, which is a flexibility option that's baked into the regulation, and it allows building owners to make the most cost-effective decisions when it comes to meeting the proposed standards within the policy. So next slide. All right. So that was pretty high level. If you feel like digging in more, I mentioned those outreach sessions, and we have a bunch of YouTube videos up now. You can watch those to get any more information about BEPS that you'd like, or you can reach out to us. Again, my name's Sam Furio. If you email us at beps.mde@maryland.gov or call us at 410-537-3183, you'll probably get me on the other end. So look forward to hearing from you if you have any additional questions. And yeah, thanks again for allowing me to speak, and thanks, Becky, for running the slides for me.
And I'll add, I believe you guys will also be joining us next month on our meeting on September 18th as well in person.
Yes, yeah, thanks for that clarifier, Jared. Yeah, we will be attending the energy and networking outreach event, or energy networking event, and I hope to maybe see some of you there and get to chat in person, and looking forward to it.
Thank you very much, Sam. I want to move on to our next guest speaker. That's Rebecca Price. So Rebecca Price is tasked with setting up the Green Buildings Hub here as a part of the Maryland Energy Administration. It's going to serve as basically a clearinghouse for information for building owners like those who BEPS applies to, and some others outside that scope, to figure out how they can make their buildings more energy efficient through funding, through legislation, through influence in the marketplace. And we're really excited to have her speak today and to have her join the city. It's Rebecca Price.
Thanks, Jared. Can you guys see this new set of slides I put up?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Got so many different tabs open. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for spending your Wednesday evening with me. I am going to go through this pretty quickly. A shameless plug, as Sam mentioned, I will be speaking for an hour tomorrow evening from 7 to 8 if you want to spend a second evening of your week talking about buildings, where I give a much more kind of detailed primer on what we're doing over at MEA. So yeah, again, this will be quite quick. So I am Becky Price, and like Sam mentioned, I am an employee with the Maryland Energy Administration. Just by way of introduction, we are Maryland's state energy office, and our mission is to advance Maryland's clean energy and greenhouse gas reduction goals through a variety of programmatic and policy offerings, including grants, rebates, financing, like really fun stuff. So obviously Sam over at MDE just gave you hopefully some clarity over the building energy performance policy in Maryland, the regulations themselves, and what you need to do. And our job over at MEA is to help you understand how you do it. So you often see Sam and I in presentations doing sort of a tag team. We're actually statutorily mandated at MEA to do this work. So when the legislators that passed the Climate Solutions Now Act were penning that legislation 2 years ago, they acknowledged that the information that building owners need is not in one place. And they wanted to create a place, like state infrastructure, that helps building owners understand how they get to the 2040 targets. Thus, there's a line in that 100-page bill that creates the Maryland Clean Buildings Hub within MEA, which is an initiative that seeks to equip and guide building owners to the resources and information they need to make investments. Thus, leading me to my working vision statement. The hub envisions a state where every building owner has access to the information, resources, and funding/financing it needs to become highly energy efficient and to eliminate on-site fossil fuel usage in a cost-effective manner. So I'm hoping that this vision statement, and I'm happy to get feedback on this, articulates what we see as the hub's core goals. So first, helping building owners understand how to decarbonize. So what are the steps and measures one must take to reduce energy use and emissions? And secondly, and perhaps more importantly, pointing them to the resources to fund and finance these measures. This hub model is actually not unique to Maryland. We're candidly borrowing this concept, which has been tested with success in other jurisdictions that have similar BEPS policies enacted. One of which is our neighbors over in DC. They enacted a BEPS in 2018. And the folks who lead that hub are actually on this call and will be speaking right after me to share sort of the great work that they've done in the last 4 years. So I'm envisioning the hub to play these sort of 3 roles to achieve our vision. So educator, convener, and I somewhat facetiously called us a building czar in Maryland. And that's given that the fact that we're housed within MEA, which does provide grants. So we have this sort of unique ability to tailor our grant programs in the future to meet the needs that the market identifies, which is an aspect of the job that I'm candidly pretty excited for. I've started using the phrase first mile of technical assistance to emphasize the fact that the hub may not be an expert in a particular topic, but we can point you to those who are. And we're going to be working to help mine and distill information so that it is as clear as possible to stakeholders, and really emphasizing breaking down any miscommunication or difficulty accessing information about funding and financing. We hear loud and clear that folks don't know, how to access it or if they're eligible, et cetera. I use this slide to kind of drive home the point that the hub is leveraging the expertise and capabilities of so many others in the ecosystem. So not just the work that Maryland Energy Administration does, but we want to point you to other state agencies that may be of assistance, community groups or nonprofits that have great resources already out there. The capital providers, financiers, et cetera. So bigger than the sum of its parts is what I like to say. Sorry, I have such sticky fingers this evening. So this probably sounds somewhat nebulous, like where is it? So we're working on it. We do have some pages on MEA's existing website, but we will hopefully by the end of the year have a separate website that'll be your first stop on your journey. And we're going to be using a variety of mediums to educate and engage with building owners. So workshops, webinars, like a cohort model where potentially buildings of a certain type meet for a 6-month kind of boot camp. Development of case studies, one-pagers, primers. So variety of different mediums to meet people where they're at. And in the immediate short term, you can follow or keep up with our development via a newsletter that was just launched. So in maybe a follow-up email, or I'll pass it to Ava, I'll send the link for that follow-up email, or for that newsletter link, sorry. And then these are just other ways to connect. So I do have an email. Folks can email me directly if they've got questions, building.decarbonization@maryland.gov. That second link is just a link to the newsletter sign up, which I'll send you. And then the last are sort of the pages on MEA's current website that kind of give a skeletal sketch of what the hub is going to be. So yeah, just to kind of clarify and reiterate, the Clean Buildings Hub is meant to be your liaison with both the Maryland Energy Administration and a matchmaker to other forms of assistance, whether that's technical or financial. Great. So that was me, short and sweet, and I think I'm passing it to Teresa.
I had a question.
Yes.
That's okay. These are great programs, and they're framed as climate adaptation. I wonder where thinking occurs in terms of resilience, where these buildings participate within the network, but what are the opportunities for them actually to have batteries stored in them so that the building goes off grid during high peak uses, and so it reduces stress on the network, and that's sort of the press events or strain on the system. And then you're going to have severe events where the grid may go down, but yet the building continues to function because it has that battery to that battery system. So it's sort of managing the flow of energy over the course of a day, a season, or extreme events, and that part of the resilience thinking of adaptation.
I'm nodding emphatically. I love that you're thinking about this. I sort of tailor these presentations to programs that will help buildings meet the BEPS requirements. Resilience is so key, as you just said, but installing a battery storage system or a microgrid is not going to make a building necessarily meet the BEPS. But you do raise a good point that MEA thinks about the energy system, comprehensively, and we do have programs that finance that type of fund and finance that type of thing. So I'd encourage you to check out Resilient Maryland, which my colleague runs. It's a super cool program, and yeah, as we kind of get folks more comfortable with just the BEPS requirements, we're going to be broadening this out and helping building owners understand their building is a much more comprehensive system that has storage, that has solar or is connected to geothermal networks, etc. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or just kind of agreeing with you.
No, I think you have.
Thank you for raising that.
No, I think you have. And the other thing that increasingly is being looked at with environmental vehicles that have the ability to start to push power back to the grid is that those are part of your microgrid, except for they're movable, right? And so they can help take buildings off of the grid. And I think that as city and state agencies look at converting to EVs which are not used in the evenings, like they can be part of that part of the system of helping PG&E smooth out and not have to increase their productive capacity because they have basically a distributed battery network that exists. So thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, we're trying not to overwhelm folks with information, and part of what I'm doing is telling folks to focus on energy efficiency first, and then kind of stacking it. Then we think about electrification, then we think about on-site renewables, etc. But points very well taken. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I can facilitate and move this right on along. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Looking forward to hearing more from your organization as it grows. And I think I might be mistaken. I think I might be on a panel with you sometime in a few months. So looking forward to that as well. I want to introduce our next speaker. And so it's a great transition to Teresa Backus, who I've had the pleasure of working with in the past through the Institute for Market Transformation. So Teresa is now the director of the Building Innovation Hub, which is based in Washington, D.C. Has a very similar function to the Green Buildings Hub here in Maryland, and actually is served as the prototype for our Green Buildings Hub here in Maryland. So looking forward to hearing more from you, Teresa.
Great, thank you so much. And let me know if you can't see my screen for any reason. You should see a PowerPoint right now. Okay, great. Hello, everybody. It's great to meet you. I'm looking through the participant list and I see some familiar names, so I appreciate seeing you again. And for those of you whom I haven't met, it's great to meet you. I'm also joined by my colleague, you'll see in the chat, Yolanda Bonner, who is not speaking, but is here to help answer your questions and drop information into the chat. So as Jared said, my name is Teresa Backus. I am the director of the Building Innovation Hub. We are a program of the National Nonprofit Institute for Market Transformation. We are not a government agency or a government department. We are, well, first I'll introduce our team. This is myself on the left and Yolanda on the right. We also have a colleague, Mary Thomas. We are the 3 FTEs of the Hub. We are supported by the larger IMT nonprofit staff as well. And so what I was saying earlier is that we are not the government. We are not a government sector. We are a nonprofit, and it is our charge to sit squarely in the middle of the government and the private sector and the building industry to kind of be a, if you will, a neutral third party to help explain not just building performance standards, but codes and other related regulations to both help folks understand how to comply with regulations, but also to simultaneously push the industry in the DC metropolitan region, Maryland and Virginia, to be, as much as possible to meet some pretty ambitious climate commitments that are being set across the region. So we are supporting with the BEPS. As Becky said, DC BEPS started in 2021. The Hub was founded originally to support with that BEPS regulation, but we have since significantly expanded our charge to help people understand considerations for things like electrification, renewables, energy storage, like you were mentioning earlier, net zero, all these things that we really need to be talking about and thinking about, like I said, if we're going to be meeting these ambitious decarbonization targets that many governments and individuals are setting. This is a little snapshot of how we fit in. So we were originally set up to support only the district. We're now doing our best to support buildings, stakeholders, tenants, designers, the workforce across the whole region. So we work closely with, connect to different local governments, all the utilities in the region as well. And the Hub, I call it Building Innovation Hub, is also part of a network called the Building Performance Partnership. It's a network run by IMT as well as the Building Energy Exchange in New York City. It's a network of other hubs in other cities across the country that are trying to do the same thing as MEA and the Building Innovation Hub are doing. So we recognize that there's this need for additional support when any type of policy like this is created. And so it's intended to provide that linkage and that support. So here's what we do at the Hub. We do a lot of outreach to a very wide audience. We have a very broad stakeholder network. I like to say anybody that's involved in the life cycle of a building. That's from development and concept through operations, maintenance, tenant relations, tenant advocacy, and workforce training. We are very focused right now, especially on community partnerships, and my colleague Yolanda is focused on helping with expanding, getting really into the community, talking to folks who may not have historically been a part of these conversations, develop resources for buildings of all sizes, especially with a focus on under-resourced buildings and building teams, as well as under-resourced businesses and small and local disadvantaged businesses. We are focused, again, I was mentioning on, expanding outside of DC. We do a lot of translation of complex regulatory language, and we create a lot of what I say static and more dynamic resources for people to use. Everything's free. for people to use and apply to their particular situation. We have a lot of downloadable templates, scopes of work for people to use when hiring particular vendors or when looking for energy auditors, or right now we're working on a retro commissioning scope of work, for example. We host a lot of events. We are planning one for October 16th in person with HOK, architecture firm. And we really we try to go anywhere and everywhere we can to fulfill the needs that we are hearing from our stakeholders. So we do a needs assessment that is continuously updated, where we ask people what their challenges are, what they need. And we try to be very nimble and adaptable depending on the results of that. And then always we are making the business case for high performance buildings. And to us, well, let me go a little bit ahead. High performance building means a lot of things. So energy efficiency, I agree with what Becky was saying. We try to drive home that you need to shore up what you have before you can, think about things like renewable energy storage. They can happen simultaneously, but if you are, have a leaky building, or you have a building that is very inefficient, you're still using a lot of energy in many cases. So we see a high performance building as one that is energy efficient, but also low carbon, resilient to extreme weather and the changing climate, has to make good financial sense in order for it to be effective and have long-term stability. And buildings have to be safe and healthy. Buildings are for people, after all. And I think we tend to, just in our day-to-day, forget that if a building is not serving its community, we don't not consider it to be a high-performing building. And a building has to perform vital functions and services. So we have a corporate membership program. This is kind of a smattering of our private sector partners that financially support our work. We get primarily our funding from local government funding, but also philanthropic sources as well. This is an example of one of the events we had where we were talking about just financing and funding of high performance building improvements. So here's some examples of some of the resources and services we provide. We do a lot of one-on-one support. We have a Success with BEPS program, we call it, that Yolanda leads, wherein we meet one-on-one with folks. We help them understand how their building is using energy. We get into their Energy Star portfolio manager account, and we say, okay, this looks like there might be some errors here. And actually, Jared's group was the original, when we kicked off Success with BEPS 3 years ago, I think, was one of our original partners on getting that program started. And we help them kind of understand how to get off the starting blocks when it comes to a regulation. So we are not necessarily taking the place of a consultant, but we are providing some free, I guess you could say, light consulting to help them understand maybe who they need to hire, or what likely their biggest challenges are going to be, or how can they find some funding to do maybe design work, or help cover some of the costs of those soft services. We do a lot of connecting. We try to have conversations with individuals that maybe have historically not been part of the conversation. As I mentioned earlier, we try to connect people that maybe aren't talking. We put people in touch with the right contacts in local government. We pass feedback that we hear from the industry to the local government on how a regulation is either being interpreted or understood, what some potential changes could look like. And we also have a big focus on future proofing for buildings. So not just future proofing assets, but thinking about how short-term regulatory compliance factors into longer-term resiliency and community support. Here's some example of our what I'll call our static resources. We have a great guide on the procurement process that buildings can use, where we walk them through every step that we recommend to procure services to improve the performance of buildings. We also have something called a high road contracting toolkit, wherein we worked with Emerald Cities Collaborative to develop a set of tools that can be embedded into the RFP process to ensure that ESG goals are factored into private sector projects. Because typically that's not something you see in a private sector project. We have a service that we love that we just recently released an update to, a vendor matching service, wherein we match buildings with qualified vendors that can do the work. We've seen a lot of people requesting an energy auditor, and energy data verifiers and benchmarking consultants through our program. And so that's, an example of kind of a more active resource that we create. Here are some exciting things that we have coming up in terms of events and ways to engage with the hub. We're working on a webinar series about housing, so high performance housing, affordable market rate, and what that means in different markets and specifically here in the DC, Maryland region. I mentioned our in-person event that's coming up in October. We're going to be having a lot of great conversations on challenging situations to decarbonization. People are going to highlight some of the solutions that they've found, and it's a great way to network. We're going to be involved in Climate Week, Green Build, thinking about how election scenario planning might factor into building performance locally. We have a lot of great regional partnerships coming up in August and September. We mentioned, or it was mentioned earlier, the September 21st commission meeting, thinking about how we can support in that event. We have a lot of great tools that we're about to launch. We have a career map, a Green Buildings career map that is set to launch very soon that Yolanda has put a lot of time into. And we will be having webinars on how folks can engage with that career map to not only increase their skills and perhaps get a new job or get a job in the green building and climate economy, but to connect to the buildings that need the work done. We also have developed a toolkit for condo and co-op buildings. These face particular challenges when it comes to improving the efficiency of the overall building. And so we've developed a toolkit to help them. We'll also be having a webinar. We're getting involved with more residential net zero energy work. There's a tour coming up there. And then we are, like I said, just generally focused on community engagement and all buildings 10,000 square feet and up right now, because buildings of different sizes have unique challenges and unique ways of communicating and unique ways of working. And so right now we're expanding our services to also include these smaller projects and unique project typologies on the opposite end of the spectrum, like data centers. So as you can tell, I think that's my last slide. Yeah, as you can tell, our mission is very, very broad, and we do a lot of work with only a few people, but we do that by leveraging partnerships, private sector and local government, like the folks on the call today. And so we're really excited to work with Becky and work with everybody else on the call, and would love to sometime in the future hear a little bit about your work and how we can support you. So I should have stopped sharing, and I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Teresa, I just wanted to say I dropped the link for the Hub's website in the chat. So if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll definitely get all those details and when all those resources will be released. That's the best way to stay in the know with us.
And there's our direct email. If you have any questions, that goes to all of us. And I believe that I am going to pass the ball, or Jared, are you going to tee up?
Yeah, I was going to say thank you so much, Teresa. That was a great overview of everything. Appreciate it. And we're also looking forward to seeing you next month. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you next month at the in-person event as well. We'll be there. Well, Teresa, as well as the Building Innovation Hub, will be there to discuss in more detail in our networking and stakeholder matchmaking event. So last but not least, I'll hand the mic over to Justin Mathis, who's the Deputy Chief of the Baltimore Department of General Services in the Energy Division, to talk about some of the initiatives that Baltimore City is undertaking to make their portfolio of buildings more energy efficient and move towards carbon neutrality. So, Jason.
Hey, thanks for introducing me. I'm happy to be here. BEPS is certainly an exciting piece of legislation. It's going to be important both for us as Baltimore City government and our own buildings, but also for Baltimore City as a whole in achieving climate goals. being part of the government. We're both a regulated entity here of the state BEPS, but also working to lead by example. I'll note the one thing we're working on is a federally funded program that's supported by both MEA and MDE for outreach and education in Baltimore, focused to our building owners and operators to understand both BEPS as the stick that it currently is, but also all the current incentives from federal, state, and utilities that are all the carrots coming through. It's kind of a rare opportunity where there's significant funding available. So we're hoping to be out of the community and help build those connections so we can start improving our buildings now rather than waiting for closer to the 2040 ultimate net zero goal. Sam mentioned that BEPS buildings are in every county. We think Baltimore is a little different, a little special. We're a little more historic. We also have slightly different energy systems than elsewhere in the state. For example, we're learning there are a few nuances in the draft regulations that are, I think, going to have effects for us in Baltimore, such as historic buildings look to individually listings, not to district listings. Much of Baltimore, especially the downtown, has historic districts that list multiple buildings. They have to be individually listed. So in these cases, we're both trying to build ourselves up as a resource, and if you have questions, to come to us as the energy division, but also we're learning as we go as well. The other thing you noted, I guess, were projects we're working on. We are, I guess, as Becky noted, looking at energy efficiency first. We have ongoing projects for lighting, weatherization, improving the envelope of buildings, as well as then looking at renewables and solar as we do larger building upgrades. Typically, once we do a roof replacement, we look at how solar is achievable as part of it. Otherwise, happy to answer questions. I'll drop my email in the chat or anything I can offer.
Jason, I wanted to ask, I follow DGS in the Energy Office on LinkedIn, and I know that there have been a few different projects that have been shared there as far as different upgrades and things. I know that there was a library recently and a parking garage that had some lighting improvements. Could you give some examples of some of the things that have been going on that people might be familiar with the locations?
Yeah, so many parking garages are under lighting retrofits, which is switching out from CFLs and sometimes older lighting to LEDs. That I guess includes like another name of it, down Federal Hill, that garage, the Caroline Street garage. But as every garage owned by Parking Authority will be completed within the next probably 2 years. Libraries are also ongoing different lighting retrofits. Harry and Run Branch is currently undergoing a lighting retrofit, which is again switching out from older T8s to LEDs. Lighting tends to have a very quick payback and significant energy savings for the cost.
Does anyone have any questions about any of the initiatives? Let's see. Looks like Morgan has a question that's more about building materials, which is a really good question. It's more talking about going back to the briefing that Nicolette and I did, I think the month before last, if I'm not mistaken, about the different scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. So we're talking about scope 1 and 2 emissions for the most part with BEPS, building energy performance standards, right now. And Morgan's talking more about the upstream and downstream emissions with the building materials that are used to make the buildings that we inhabit. So the embodied carbon within them, and looking at the opportunities for Camp Small and other places to provide reclaimed building materials. So definitely a good point on that. Let's see. I'm curious, Jason, do you guys have any other plans long term? And I was talking to Julie a little while ago back at our open house about what your offices might be doing across the board for city buildings citywide to reduce their carbon footprint, like commissioning or other things that some folks may have heard about. If anybody's not familiar with what commissioning or retro commissioning of a building is, I can let you take that, Jason, if you want to as well.
Sure. Yeah, we have retro commissioning programs happening. We typically are able to tackle a couple buildings a year. That's where you're trying to tune up the HVAC system to be as it was designed to be. So it's rebalancing the system, making sure everything works appropriately, and kind of the efficiency it was designed to be. You're reaching building controls are sometimes a part of that, sometimes not. And we're looking at doing building controls upgrades, which give you sensors to connect to the HVAC system throughout, and the ability to see faults rapidly or find where there are inefficiencies happening before it becomes a large change on your energy bill. And for larger commercial buildings, building controls are an important piece of that puzzle often. So we're undergoing a buildings controls upgrade, starting with the convention center and likely expanding out to our larger downtown core. Otherwise, we are working, I guess, part as a building owner of multiple buildings. We're trying to complete a study that would be a prioritization study of how to comply with BEPS, knowing that we have about 20 buildings that will have to reach that net zero goal by 2040. It's how do we invest appropriately now and in the future. So that's kind of we have, I guess, the one strategy is just kind of piecemeal projects, one going separately, and the other is doing that broader prioritization and trying to determine the best way of attacking it from building one through years in the future.
Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, this has been a great meeting. So even it sounds like you know, you all might even be in contact with someone like the hub or the Green Buildings Hub or the Building Innovation Hub, maybe to get additional resources and collaborate with them in the future, or even look to MEA. It sounds like you already are, for funding opportunities down the road to comply with the BEPS program that NDE has rolled out. And I wanted to just take that opportunity to kind of tie everything together for both this meeting and next meeting for energy and the economy. So how everything fits together, how the legislation of the building energy performance standards is going to impact those larger commercial buildings over 35 square feet. And our next meeting that's coming up, in our in-person meeting, we hope to not only showcase clearinghouses for information like the Building Innovation Hub and the Green Buildings Hub, and as well as other stakeholders like Maryland Department of Environment, Maryland Department of Energy, and even Baltimore Gas and Electric, and Maryland Clean Energy Center, to so folks can see all the resources available as part of this legislation to see how they can make their buildings more energy efficient. So this is all a part of our master plan in the city to make the built environment more sustainable and more energy efficient. And we'll be looking to promote next month's meeting as well out to stakeholders. This meeting will cater to those commercial building owners, so people primarily that BEPS is applicable to. And in the future, we want to even focus on more residential buildings. So like houses and the buildings that we live in, and talk about the resources for them in the future. So definitely love to catch or get any questions that you all might have about building energy efficiency, and sustainability. I'll actually open the floor. We've got a little bit of time here to see if anyone had any questions of our presenters today, or just in general to talk about the upcoming meeting. Okay, quiet. All right. So The next meeting will be in person. It will be an in-person meeting. Again, at Montgomery Park building. That's right at the corner of Monroe Street and Washington Boulevard. They've got the big sign, so you can't miss it. And we're really excited to have all our partners on board to answer a lot of the questions around BEPS, around the different funding opportunities, to make buildings more efficient, and also just to see each other in person and not, in the computer screen and our little boxes here. So really excited to do that. I think the last time we did that was for the open house. We had a great time connecting with everybody. To that, if no one else has anything, Ava, Mia, Amy, then I will.
Think Ava has additional information to share. And
Yeah.
then I do think that it's important to tie what we discussed today back to the plan itself. So I'm frantically flipping through the pages of the plan so that, I'm not an energy person. So a lot of this really was fantastic information. However, I want to make sure that everyone is aware of how it ties to the plan that for our accountability, so that we know our role in this. So, Jared, I need to lean on you just a little bit to help make that connection so that all the commissioners are aware.
Sorry about that. Yep. So I am actually going back to the master plan and bringing up the specific goals and guidelines here for the plan. So one thing in the plan is climate and resilience was an important part of the Baltimore City Master Plan. And one thing with climate and climate preparedness is to reduce the carbon footprint. So even though this was of all the buildings in Baltimore, so even though this was a state initiative, it really helps serve those goals of the city. And that's why we as an office and a commission are doing the best we can to make resources available, tie folks together and help and be really a resource for everyone to help them meet those building energy performance standards goals. This is, I guess it's tied to the plan in multiple ways since number one, if we reduce carbon, if we reduce the energy that we input into our buildings, then we can reduce greenhouse gases overall. And that will have an impact on not only climate, but also air quality in Baltimore, which Denzel talked about a little bit earlier. When you have a lot of buildings doing direct emissions, so then going back again to that scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, when you have a lot of direct emissions, so people burning fossil fuels and coming out of the smokestack or the flue pipe of those buildings, that is in the air around us. And the more we can reduce that and electrify the grid, the cleaner we can make our air. And then number two, just generally speaking, these typically, it typically has an impact of when buildings operate better, just when Jason was talking about commissioning, they typically are healthier for the residents and the occupants of those buildings, so air quality improves. People generally have better experiences in those buildings. So that is really the reason why we're stressing energy and the economy and the environment. And the last thing is we can build the green economy here in Maryland. So we can create jobs that are focused on sustainability, that are focused on improving our buildings and lowering our carbon footprint, and really revitalizing the area. So let's see, and I'm getting some messages here in the chat.
Jared, I'll jump in just
Yeah.
for a minute.
Yeah.
I know, Morgan, you were making really great points about thinking about materials and the built environment. So I just threw some kind of stats in there. When we think about our total decarbonization goals to 2045 and things like that, we are talking about that total carbon. The BEPS program is really that operating energy. I think I put that a little further up in the chat, but the built environment together, so that's buildings, infrastructure, right, all the stuff. that is in Baltimore City is 42% of all global emissions. And I think somewhere along the way, Mia, Ava, in our Baltimore report, you have it specifically what it is for Baltimore. This is, again, a global statistic of what's operating energy and what's embodied carbon. And what's so interesting or scary is that 15% of the pie is like 4 materials. It's steel, it's concrete, it's glass, and aluminum. So if we can use materials, like Morgan said, wood, you're inherently starting with less embodied carbon. If you can reuse existing buildings, you're already like reducing the embodied carbon of that project. So if that's helpful to everyone, thought I would share.
Great.
I really appreciate the clarifications. And I think that when you think about those materials, also some of them are more the operation of those buildings is less. So what we find with wood, mass timber buildings, they're more energy efficient and they're actually safer in terms of fire than steel. So I just think that we need to, and they require fewer people to build the buildings, and the construction trades are really hurting for finding people to employ. So I think that there's a lot of lessons there, and there's a lot of resources, to support those shifts.
I really just want to emphasize the importance of focusing on buildings. It is one of the key chapters in our sustainability plan in terms of the goals that kind of center on buildings or that relate to that. It includes the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, decarbonizing our buildings is a huge goal for the city, as well as electrification. There is a lot that the state and the federal government is supporting now in terms of legislation as well as funding that will help us meet those goals as a city. So excited that we're having this conversation and building. We spend so much time in buildings, whether it's our homes that many of us are in right now, our work, our places of work, or other buildings that we go to for recreation or leisure. I do want to just clarify, in terms of the city's greenhouse gas inventory, we look primarily at scope 1 and 2 emissions. Many local governments limit their inventories to that scope. And so there's a piece of that kind of pie that we're certainly not tapping into when it relates to the embodied carbon and the scope 3 emissions. It is a limitation of some of the work, but we have to kind of factor in like what can we reasonably and feasibly do to address some of those scope 3 emissions. And oftentimes there just isn't a lot of levers that local governments can pull in order to actually reduce those scope 3 emissions. Also, how those scope 3 emissions are attributed to whether it's the private sector or the public sector is also a big question that I think comes into play in terms of including or not those emissions into a local government's inventory. And with that, I wanted to share a couple other funding opportunities, but I wanted to, Jared, did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
No, I think I'm good. Yep, I think I'm good.
Okay. All right. So visiting the agenda here. So just to make sure folks are aware that there are some other federal funding opportunities out there that we just want to make sure folks have on their radar, including the community change grants. We did have a call with some partners across the city who we are aware of that plan to put in community change grant proposals and applications. If you or a community group is planning to submit one of these applications, please do reach out to us. We want to just support coordination and collaboration on those proposals. We know that EPA will likely fund a limited number of proposals for the Baltimore region in general. So as much as we can be coordinated to avoid unnecessary competition among proposals, the better. There are some other transportation related funding highlighted here, including Safe Streets for All, as well as Thriving Communities grants. And then we also want to continue to remind nonprofit partners as well as community-based organizations about direct or elective pay, which allows for non-tax entities to file for reductions on renewable energy projects up to 30, I think actually up to 40%. So want to make sure that if you are applying for grants that specifically relate to the building or installation of renewable energy projects such as solar or even electric vehicles, you can save significantly on those projects by leveraging direct or elective pay. Sorry, my computer is a little slow, so I apologize for that. A couple of other funding opportunities we want to make sure folks are aware of, and if there are opportunities to partner with any agency in the city or with our office, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We have team members looking into each of these, but the Maryland Department of Natural Resources has its grant gateways funding open. And those proposal due dates are coming up in September and December, depending on the particular outcome that you're aiming for. We also, the Chesapeake Bay Trust has outreach and restoration grants that are available that folks can apply for now, as well as the Healthy Environment and Healthy Communities grants from the Chesapeake Bay Trust, and they're doing they're also supporting community engagement and restoration mini grants. We didn't put this on here, but the Green and Healthy Homes initiatives also received a total of $40 million from EPA Region 3, and they're supporting grant. I think that is here, sorry. Okay, so they're supporting the Thriving Communities Grant Making Program. So you can apply for up to $350,000 depending on the particular scope of your proposal or application. So if anyone is interested in this, we can share out the information that we've received from the Green and Healthy Homes initiative about this particular funding and share that contact information. And I believe there was an informational call that was coming up. So we can find out. We'll make sure to share that information out as well. But those proposals due dates are coming up, and we're really excited to hear about that. I think it was around 100 or I can't remember the exact number, but 100 or so proposals that would actually get funded from the total 40 million within EPA Region 3, which includes 6 states, including Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and West Virginia. Again, this is just to reiterate what Jared had shared about next month's meeting. We really want to thank the state for partnering with us and the ability to host our energy networking or event at Montgomery Park. We hope to see you all there in person, and again to continue to delving deep into this theme and to ensure that we're helping to make those connections in the buildings and energy sector. And that's it.
Denzel, you had a question.
I did have a question, but I could address it with you offline. It was about the EPA grant and what the city is planning to do about submitting that grant and how it would be, administered and how, what's the proposal that would go in. And I could talk to you about that later. But I literally.
Yeah, Donzel, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to chat with you about that, but just to give you a quick. Okay, yeah. A few different agencies are planning to put in proposals that relate to different themes. But yeah, I'm happy to go into more detail with you and anyone else that may be interested. We want to have open communications and transparency around how we're coordinating around community change grants.
Yeah, we'd love to help. And yeah, we'll talk offline.
So the link is in the chat for the meeting for next month. We would love for you all to share this with any building owners, people. Jared, you're gonna have to help me out here. Who should be coming to this meeting in addition to commissioners?
Yep. So this, we really wanted to focus on people who this would apply to, who are affected by, who have those commercial buildings like Teresa and Rebecca talked about that the hubs would service. So those owning or operating commercial buildings and who are subject to the building energy performance standards. We will have lots of resources there for people to find funding opportunities like some of the ones that Abe mentioned, as well as technical resources like contractors, energy auditors, who would be able to help meet your energy efficiency goals. We are in talks with Baltimore Gas and Electric, as well as the Maryland Clean Energy Center, to come and offer some more information about their funding opportunities, as well as their technical assistance as well. And also a good location and a good event for people to network among themselves, kind of cross-pollinate information, and just generally share information. I see your hand up, Amy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to elaborate on what commercial buildings means, as far as, since that encompasses a large range of categories that people might understand better if you provide a wider range of examples.
Sure. So, so specifically for the building energy performance standards, going back to the presentation that was given a little bit earlier from MDE, a commercial building would be, or a commercial building that's subject to BEPS would be a building that's over 35,000 square feet. So again, if you think any large building where business or other activities take place, like a school, or like certain schools, I should say, like a university, library, or a larger library, supermarket, office buildings, and that would even include a residential building, so a multifamily residential building, if it was over 35,000 square feet. This information would really be applicable to the people who own and operate those buildings. Although there is general information there will be general information there for people with smaller buildings as well, on how to maintain or achieve energy efficiency through different rebate or utility rebate programs, state-sponsored rebate programs, and so on. So again, we have information for folks with BEPS, and those are buildings, commercial buildings, 35,000 square feet or over. And then buildings that are smaller than that are still eligible for some of the same incentives, but they just wouldn't be subject to the BEPS regulations, which we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail in our next meeting. Does that clarify? So I would say commercial buildings are really any building that is not.
It also includes ownership, right?
It does, yeah. So basically anything that's not a single family home would really fall under the category of commercial buildings. And anything that is in that category and larger than 35,000 square feet will be subject to the BEPS regulations that they'll have to submit their energy usage stats for in 2025. So we'll have a lot of information about that as well. That clarified things a bit.
So before we close out, are there any comments from commissioners? Please check your email for oh, sorry, Lisa, I saw that you came back on camera. Did you have anything that you wanted to share?
No, I was just shaking my head. I don't have any further comments.
Thank you. Please check your email for the link to the policy document that'll be due on September 13th. All other information will come out in the office email that is like the monthly newsletter with all the great tips. If you don't read that newsletter, you're not subscribed. It is an amazing newsletter from the office. Lots of great tips in there. And we will be back together in September. So thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.